Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of My Name is Dad. We are on my second part of the multi-part series. So this is My Name is Dad, Who Am I? Part 2. And I believe where we left off was the elementary school years, and we're now getting into high school, where the fun really begins, but maybe kind of sort of. Okay. But first, let's get into, let's just talk about the podcast real quick. You can catch this podcast exclusively on Spotify. I do it on Spotify because it's for free. I don't have to pay for it. I just record, upload, and there it goes. So it's on Spotify. That's what I'm using. I like Spotify. I listen to most of my podcasts on Spotify. I have no problem with them. You want to listen to podcasts or music, whatever, check out Spotify. You know, I'm an Android guy, so we don't do the Apple stuff. So you got to go to Spotify to check this one out. All right. And then my sponsor is myself, which is Point B Grading and Turfcraft Maintenance, LLC. We provide grading services for your sports fields, for your backyard, for your driveway, whatever it is. And also, I do Turfcraft Maintenance. So if you're having trouble with your irrigation clock or your irrigation for your yard, or you need some fertilizing done, whatever it is, you can contact me, and we'll see if we can get something done. And you can check us out at pointbgrading.com, pointbgrading.com, or send me an email at pointbgrading@gmail.com. All right. Now, let's get into some fun stuff here. We're going into high school, my high school year, and this is going to be the fall of 1997. I know that sounds like forever ago, but not to me. And I think people my age would be like, yeah, it's not that long ago. It's 1997. No, it's a long time ago. I don't even know. We're coming up on 30 years. Holy cow, since I started high school. Okay. So my freshman year, I went to Lemoore Union High School in California. And the summer going into my freshman year, again, as I mentioned in elementary school, I went to class with the same kids, same 30 kids every year. We became really, really good friends. But when I went in the high school, I was going to play football. So I had to start the weightlifting program. So in the summer of 97, going into my freshman year, I'm an 8th grader, and there was like freshman team weightlifting. You got to be there if you want to play football. So I was down there, and I had already knew a bunch of these kids when I was there because I had played football and all the in-town sports with them when I started. So, but very quickly, I made a bunch of new friends. And again, I knew a lot of these kids before for playing sports and everything from before. So high school was very, very much different than elementary school. We did not change classes. We did not, and I guess that was a big thing. Like your parents dropped you off. You went to school. You went to the same class, same teacher, same students every day. You go to high school, it's completely different. You change classes and teachers, and no one's there to really kind of babysit you in a way. You're kind of on your own. So it was a huge sort of transition for me. And our high school was an open campus. So for like lunch, you could go off campus. You could walk, you could drive, whatever you could do. It wasn't like secluded. It wasn't like fenced in or anything like that. And really, my freshman year was sort of the beginning of the end of like the political correctness sort of high school. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but like if you remember the movie Dazed and Confused, where the juniors who become seniors get to go around and paddle all the 8th graders who are becoming freshmen. They get to paddle them. Like they make paddles in one shop, and they go around and they spank all the incoming freshmen. And then the girls, they take them to the car wash and all this stuff. Well, I feel like my freshman year, that was like the last year of that. All right. So for example, I think my freshman year was the last year we had a night prep rally, which was a really big deal. I remember my sister going a couple years before me, and it was like a huge party, and it was like a great big deal. I think my freshman year was the last year we had that. And then so during the rally week, I think it was like the rivalry week when we played, the crosstown rivals or whatever. They had rally cars. Maybe it was homecoming week. I can't remember. But they had rally cars where like every class like had like this beat up car and they would paint it the colors and stuff. So like the freshmen were purple and gold, and then sophomores were red, white, and blue, and then juniors or camouflage, I believe, and then seniors were like the Raiders colors, black and silver. So it was like a big deal and everything. But I think my freshman year was the last year we even had that, which actually kind of reminds me of a story. It was the freshman. I was a freshman, and it was the night rally night, and they would always do like little games and stuff, and the freshmen would always have a couple competitors, and it'd be like class versus class and sprinting or doing this and doing that, and they would always kind of like sort of rig the game so like the juniors or seniors won, whatever it was. So I remember I was chosen to do this game, and it was the one where they blindfold you, and they blindfold everyone, and then you're supposed to eat the food as quickly as you can. Okay. But of course, the joke is that they only blindfold the freshmen. They don't blindfold everyone else, and then they feed you like hot dogs or try to feed you dog food and stuff like that. But very quickly into this, so I'm the person blindfolded, and I'm supposed to be eating, and like the person behind you is supposed to be feeding you. But very quickly I catch on to this. So it's like, I can like hear people around me and stuff. And I can hear them. I'm like, like something's going on here. So what I do is I just cock back and I throw a punch to whoever's in front of me. I don't know who it was, but I cold cocked somebody out of the blue. But then someone behind me like hooked my arms to like stop me from throwing more punches and stuff. And I don't know. Apparently I ruined the big old joke because it was supposed to be like, oh, you're supposed to make fun of the freshmen and all this stuff and laugh at them for like, eating cold hot dogs and dog food and stuff. But that it happened just like a little bit, but I quickly caught on and punched somebody in the face. I'm sorry, whoever that was. But yeah, so that's my one kind of funny story from that. So my freshman year, obviously I played football. I played football since I was 10. At this point, this would be like my 5th year playing football. I don't know. And we went undefeated, of course. But the freshman team, there are no playoffs. So you just like, you go undefeated and they go, oh, yay, great for you. As I mentioned, still during my freshman year, we had, it was open campus. So you could go off school for lunch and everything. And I didn't have a car. My sister drove, but she would just take me to school and drive me home, if I needed it. If we were both going home at the same time. But I would walk to school, or I would walk to lunch with my friends. And there was, down the street, there was a pizza shop, that they would sell, they sell you a slice of pizza for $2 or something like that. It was like $2.50 for a slice and a soda. And then there was also a donut shop. You could go down, we'd get a donut and a soda or something like that. But, really freshman, you're kind of limited because you don't really have too much options. But I would do that a lot with my friends. My freshman year, I would say that, I was still very immature. I was very, I don't know about naive. I was just sort of maybe secluded. I lived out in the country. I just didn't. And it's funny because I even though I grew up playing sports in town, I still was just very like secluded. I just didn't understand, I did not have street smarts. That's for sure. I did not have street smarts, but I as my freshman year and sophomore year went on, I gained more and more as it went on. So my freshman year, I played football. Like I said, we went undefeated. I went from football straight into wrestling. And I always had kind of liked wrestling. I was always, average, maybe at best, maybe good. I don't know. I just wasn't, the wrestling coach never really kind of gave a shit about me. I wasn't good enough for him to care. Just that I was another body on his wrestling program. But it hurt my back really bad. And this is a story I tell a lot because I hurt my back really bad. I did a fireman's carry on a friend, just at wrestling practice, and my back blew out so bad. It just crunched. And I thought I had broke ribs or something like that. I don't know. But I remember I tell my son, this is, you know what, Nana and Papa made me go to school the next day, even though I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't breathe. I could not take a deep breath. I walked around with my arms like tight to my side, and I couldn't, I just like, because I couldn't take a deep breath because it hurt so bad. And I walked around school all day, just like short breathing and like barely moving. I like barely made it to class and stuff. And my son's always like, Nana and Papa would never make you go to school. I'm like, oh yes, they did. I definitely went to school, and I walked around school barely breathing, because I hurt my back so bad. But then my mom did take me, not to the doctor. She took me to the chiropractor. Yeah. And the chiropractor popped my back. And it did work, but, no doctor visit for me. It was straight to the chiropractor. And I remember the chiropractor was like, I do like, he's like, I pop a lot of backs, and I pop like old ladies' backs who have been in car accidents. He's like, your son like had one of the biggest like moves, like bone moves I felt in a while. And, I'm a teenager, I hurt my back pretty bad. So I ended up quitting wrestling, and I just focused on football after that. But so after that, I just ended up just lifting weights, basically for the rest of the year. That was like my PE class was weightlifting, just lifting weights, and, just trying to, just trying to get ready for the next football season, because football was my passion. And I remember that, basically my whole, my whole life, my whole life, I was always the short one. I was always kind of like the short, fat kid. Always in the front row of the team picture. And I remember just wanting to just be like as big as I could. I didn't care what I ate, how much I could. It was like, I just wanted to get bigger. And I always just assumed there was another growth spurt coming. Because I'm 5'8" now, and I was probably 5'8" as a freshman, or pretty close to that. And I just kept assuming there's going to be another growth spurt, and it's going to come, and I'm going to be ready. I put on all this bulk, and it's going to happen. And it never came. So that's kind of how it was for me. I was a 5'8" guy, still am, and that's what it was for me. And the growth spurt never came. I remember my freshman year, I had a math teacher who hated me so much. Even my mom will validate, will say that, yes, she hated me for whatever reason. She would call home all the time and complain about me to my mom, for whatever reason. I don't know. I wasn't even like that bad of a student. I was just there. So all through my freshman year, and even up to this point through elementary school, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I hadn't had a girlfriend. Girls were, when I started my freshman year, girls still weren't very big interests for me. But by the end of my freshman year, I definitely were noticing the girls around school and like that. But I don't know. I just never had the fortitude or whatever to pursue girls or anything like that. And the couple that I kind of had chances with were shot down. I remember my sister was a cheerleader for the high school, and she had a friend who like wanted like a date to the prom. She didn't have one or something like that, and was like, oh, would your brother just go with me? And, my sister was like, oh yeah, I should go. She was super cool. And she was super cool. She was a nice girl. But my mom was like, no. My mom shut that shit down real quick for whatever reason. My mom will probably completely deny that, but it happened. We can ask my sister. But basically that summer after my freshman year, I had a friend who like was held back and had like a good birthday. So he had like got his driver's license, during the school year. And so he was the only one who could drive, for all my friends. And we would go around and, we would go to the arcade and the movies and whatever. But one of the fun things we used to do was he had a pickup truck and like a Ford F-150, the old box style kind. And we would lay down in the bed, like on our backs, and you would kind of like do like an X, like have your hands above your head and your feet out. And then, he would drive around and then like stop real quick and you would slide it up to the front. If you didn't have your hands up, like you would basically crush your head in your neck. And then like he would like go through the parking lots of like the grocery store and like, fly over the speed bumps, and you would fly way up in the air and, come back down. It was, that was a lot of fun for us back in the day when we were, freshmen, going into the sophomore year and everything. And my friends, we would, we would have sleepovers at like our houses and stuff, but we would order, or we would go down to the Blockbuster and we would rent the UFC, like the Ultimate Fighting Championship videos, and this is like 1 to 10 or 10 to 20, like, and we would kind of rent them and watch them because we didn't have pay-per-view, or we had pay-per-view, but none of our parents were going to pay for pay-per-view. So we waited till the thing came out at Blockbuster, and we would rent the tape, then we'd go home and watch it. So we're watching Dan the Beast Severn and Ken Shamrock and Royce Gracie and, Tank Abbott and all this stuff. That's what we grew up on, but we rented it from Blockbuster to watch them. So we would do a lot of those. We would also rent like horror movies and hang out and just watch those. And one of the things we used to do was, basically we would sneak our parents' alcohol. We would do the old fashioned thing of, we would pour the alcohol out and then split it amongst ourselves and then fill the bottle back up with water. So it looked like it was full because my parents never drank, and I don't know about their parents, but that's what we used to do. So really my freshman year, that summer after my freshman year going into sophomore year was really like the first time I, started getting drunk and stuff like that. All right. Well, now let's move on to my sophomore year, which is maybe even less exciting, but that's that. My one note here says my sophomore year I feel was uneventful, but let's see what we can come up here. So I remember my sophomore year, my sister again drove me to school. I was not going to be able. I was only 15. I was not going to be able to drive until that summer, going into my junior year. That's when I want to turn 16 in June. That's my birthday's in June. So my whole sophomore year, I was 15. Did not have a license, anything like that. But again, I had a friend who drove. But I remember my sister was a senior. I was a sophomore. My sister used to take me to school, and I remember I had this smoking hot history teacher, and I had her first period my sophomore year, and she was like this petite little lady, super good looking, and she was from Texas, and how y'all doing? She had the accent and everything, and I was always late for her class, always late, and it's really not my fault. With my older sister would make me late. So my older sister, I'd be ready to go for school. And we lived, 20 minutes away from the school. It was a good 20-minute drive at least. And then the fog was a little bit longer than that. But, I'd be ready to go for school, and my sister still be getting her makeup ready and getting her hair done, make sure everything was perfect. And I'd be ready to go. And then when we pulled into the parking lot, my sister's class was really close to the parking lot. So she was always on time for her class, but she didn't give a shit about me. My class was on the other side of campus. And so I would, hustle it over there, and I always be like a minute or two late and everything. And then, she'd always be like, "Hey, Brandon, I need to talk to you after school or after class." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." But I didn't really mind because you're so good looking. But, that was just a memory I have from my sophomore year. My sophomore year was also the year I was introduced to the drive-in movie theater, which we'll probably hear more on a little bit later. My older sister, when she was a senior, and she would take me, and we would go hang out. So basically, it was kind of like a high school hangout thing. A bunch of the kids, high school kids, would hang out in the very far back corner, as far as you could from everybody else, and hang out and talk and stuff, but not try to be rowdy enough to cause suspicion or to get in trouble, but everyone would go and kind of, watch the movie, semi-watch the movie, but hang out and talk. And, some people would smoke weed or drink and all this stuff. So we did a lot of that and just hung out kind of out there. And it was really a lot of fun. I think it's where I saw Titanic or Saving Private Ryan. Like some of these movies I semi-watched at the drive-in theater, with my sister. We would go and hang out with people, and it was a lot of fun. I actually had it was a really good time. My sophomore year, again, I had been lifting weights and just preparing for football season since I quit wrestling, and just lifting weights and all summer long, and just like, again, praying this growth spurt is going to come, and I'm like ready to go. I'm doing it. I'm already, eating as much. I'm like just eating calories and lifting weights and taking creatine and doing all this stuff. Of course, my growth spurt never came. So I just got bigger and bigger and bigger and fatter. But, but my sophomore year, I played JV football. So in my high school, we had enough kids to play freshman, JV, and then there was the varsity team. So I was on the JV team. And again, I remember I was good, but not a superstar. So the superstars, their sophomore year went to the varsity team. And I was good, but I was on the JV team. But when I was on the JV team, I was a man amongst boys. I had been lifting weights, training, trying to get big. I was stocky. I was not the fastest, but I was a stocky kid, just mowing people over. So my JV year was actually one of my most fun years, one of my best years of playing football, because again, I felt like a man amongst boys. I knew what I was doing. I had been training very hard, and, I could just ball over people, just smash people. So I played O-line, and this is when I really, really started playing a lot of linebacker, because I felt so good, and I was like, I can play any position I fucking want. I'll play some linebacker. I'm going to go play some linebacker and just kill people. So I did. So I played linebacker, and I was really good and natural at it. Like I remember one time I came off the field from playing, defense and stuff. And one of my teammates was like, he's like, did you know, like, you just made like 5 tackles in a row? I was like, no, like I didn't even notice it, but I did. And he was like, yeah, the announcer just called your name 5 times in a row. And I was like, oh shit. Okay, well, yeah, I don't know. I'm just playing football. I'm just out there tackling people and doing whatever I'm doing. So it was like, I had a great time playing football that year. And again, I did have some back problems. I remember I had to wear like a little like back brace and stuff because my back from before. But man, I remember that was a fun year just because I felt that was like the one year I really felt like, man, I'm the king of this field. I can do whatever I want. And it was like, oh, because I put so much effort in all the years before, that's why. Maybe I could have been playing varsity, but I would have been on the bench, but I played JV, and I was a stud at that year. Still, going all the way through my sophomore year, I have yet to have a girlfriend. I don't think I've kissed a girl. I haven't really talked to girls that much. It was just kind of, I don't know, I guess maybe I felt like maybe it wasn't allowed, or maybe I just didn't. I just assumed that, that I wasn't good looking. I would hear people be like, oh, so and so likes you, and I'd just be like, really? Like I'm just like this short, fat, ugly dude. Like I couldn't. Like it didn't really. I didn't really think about it that much. Just like. I'm just the dude, like I'm not, the girls like those guys. They don't like me, like I'm just dude Brandon, I know that doesn't quite make sense, but it was just like, I just didn't understand how girls could like me, or I wasn't supposed to like them. I don't know. But yeah, still my sophomore year, no girls, no girlfriend, anything like that. I remember my sister, again, had a friend who apparently liked me or something like that. She was maybe a year ahead of me or something. She was a cheerleader and wanted to meet me. my sister was like, oh, let's go to the drive-in. And this girl was there, and they had kind of like set it up that we would talk and stuff. But I was so naive. Like, I didn't even know. I didn't know anything about it until afterwards. She was like, oh, hey, you were supposed to talk to so-and-so. And I was like, well, I don't get hints, right? Naive Brandon, who, like, I don't get hints. You have to be very blunt with me. As maybe a lot of you women know, that's how guys are. You have to tell them, oh, no, this person is here to talk to you. And again, I didn't even know. So most of my sophomore year, I hung out with my friends, and we just went around and caused stupid trouble, like riding in the bed of the truck, being pulled by the truck. We would sit on a couch and we tied it to the truck, and we'd be pulled around out in the country, riding this couch while the truck pulled it. I remember one of my friends scraped up his leg pretty good doing that. We would throw ice at parked cars. We would just drive by like a drive-by icing, we would just throw ice, boom, you hear it hit the car, and we would laugh. But yeah, again, just, I don't know. That was my sophomore year. Things really didn't get quite very exciting. I mean, it was fun. It was fun. I had a good time, but I didn't really start getting into too much trouble. That's where we're going to pick up on the next part. My junior year might be one whole episode. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to write some notes down and see how long it is. But I was able to combine freshman, sophomore year into one episode, but I don't know about junior, senior year. Those might be 2 episodes on their own. So thank you again for listening. If you want to reach out, just go ahead and reach out to me. I'm sure, you can do a comment on Spotify if you have any questions, anything like that. But again, the episode, my name is Dad. This is part 2 of Who I Am, or Who Am I, part 2. And thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks. Bye.